Hey everybody, welcome back to Race of History. We're going to get into a video today on Simo Häyhä. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right, specifically his last name, but I've done a video in the past about him, but it was a shorter video and it was kind of in the context of the Winter War. And I'm about to do the Sabaton song for him, right? That's about him. And so I thought beforehand I would look at another video about him, kind of give context for it, and have that context going into the Sabaton song for it. So, with all that being said, we're going to do Simo Häyhä, the deadliest sniper in military history.
When World War II broke out in 1939, the Soviet Union decided to invade Finland while everyone else was preoccupied with the war in Europe. But a sniper named Simo Häyhä came to Finland's defense. Häyhä allegedly eliminated a staggering 505 enemy soldiers, which, if accurate, would make him the single deadliest sniper in history. Today we're looking at the man Simo Häyhä and his unbelievable marksmanship. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel. Simo would have wanted it that way. All right, let's get sniping. As you might imagine, the invading Soviet soldiers grew to be straight up terrified of Häyhä. Having to patrol the blanched Finnish wilderness with the knowledge that Häyhä could be out there waiting to ping them with a spectacular long-distance shot earned him the nickname Belje Smert, which is Russian for White Death. However, Häyhä's fellow Finnish soldiers had a completely different name for him. They called him Taika Ampuja, Magic Shooter. While that nickname may have been as accurate as Häyhä himself, we have to admit it is somewhat less intimidating than White Death. Simo's exact sniper count varies depending on the source. Some suggest he downed as many as 542 Soviet soldiers with his rifle, but no one claims he eliminated any less than 505. This makes him the most effective sniper in any war, with Soviet sniper Ivan Sidorenko sitting at a close second with 500 kills. However, Häyhä's count may even be higher. Rather than stay at a comfortable distance behind his sniper rifle for the entire war, Häyhä may have also cut down several hundred enemy combatants with a submachine gun. If true, that would put his count at approximately 800. Simo, that is a frightening number. Impressive, sure, but holy cow, you're really good at your job. The Winter War lasted for a single winter, as its name suggests, which means Häyhä was putting in serious work. In order to achieve his staggering record, Häyhä was eliminating an average of 5 to 6 enemy soldiers every day. Of course, some days were better than others. Häyhä racked up a terrifying 40 confirmed kills in a single day, scoring 25 and 20 on 2 other record days. The cloud of perpetual death in which he lived saw him promoted from corporal to second lieutenant, the biggest rank jump in the history of Finland's military. Häyhä did not use a scope to forge his legendary sniper count.
This is probably one of the craziest parts about this story. He was using iron sights, which I don't know how many people watching have shot firearms or shoot firearms consistently. Iron sights suck, right? Not if you're at relatively close range. They're fine, I guess. But for a long range shot, you might as well not be using a sight. I mean, seriously, it is it is like you're just using your naked eye in order to do it. I mean, sure, you have a little bit of a lineup, but depending on how far you're shooting, that lineup may not be correct, right? With wind speed or whatever, or how far the distance is. And so it's just, this is one of the just most bizarre things about him and his, prowess with a rifle is that he didn't use a scope, like a real scope. It's just, I don't know. It seems impossible. Like you would have to be so damn good with a gun that like everything about it is just second nature. It comes as easily as walking or breathing or whatever. Like, I don't know. It's crazy to me.
he preferred to use the plain old iron sight on his rifle. Yeah, no scope. He's just an all-around old-fashioned badass. Beyond being hardcore, there was a strategic reason for this, beyond just showing off. Häyhä recognized that scopes made his enemies an easy target. In addition to making the target slightly bigger, scopes would glint in the sunlight, allowing Häyhä to spot enemy snipers before they spotted him. At the time, every Finnish citizen was required to do 1 year of military service, and Häyhä had done his 14 years earlier, back in 1925. That was the extent of his military experience. He did join the Finnish Civil Guard as a reservist, which is essentially the equivalent to the U.S. National Guard, but he stuck to his civilian life of hunting and farming right up until the Soviets decided to invade in 1939, at which point he was summoned back to service. If his hunting record was anything like his war record, we suspect the deer around Häyhä's home had a nickname for him too. After he completed his year of mandatory service in 1925, Häyhä was given the option to purchase his service weapon, a standard bolt-action rifle. He bought the gun and spent the next decade and a half mastering it. When he was called back to duty during the Winter War, Häyhä brought his old bolt-action rifle, turning down a more modern rifle with advanced optics. The extreme cold, which ranged anywhere from -20 to -40 degrees Fahrenheit, caused frequent weapon malfunctions among his fellow soldiers. But Häyhä's experience with his bolt-action BFF allowed him to keep the gun functional throughout the winter. While only having minimal military experience, Häyhä wasn't possessed by the lord of incredible aim. He developed his skill from being a competitive sharpshooter, having grown up a few miles away from the Civil Guard shooting range, which held annual contests. Häyhä regularly participated in these competitions, packing his house full of trophies. Among his accomplishments was the ability to hit a target with his rifle 16 times in a minute at a range of 500 feet, a talent best described as supernatural. Häyhä was deployed to the Kola battlefield, where he and 31 other soldiers were tasked with holding off an invading force of 4,000 Soviet troops. Despite having fewer men on the roster than a college football team, Häyhä's group managed to hold their ground for the entire winter. That's some good goal line defense right there. He and his fellow Finns.
Yeah, and so, I've done a whole Winter War series over how the Finns did during this, right? Because it's just an incredible story, and the Finns did. I mean, the Finns did so well that it almost just doesn't make sense, right? I mean, they did for what they had and what they were going up against. It's almost like impossible odds, but still. You have one guy, even in that group that has overachieved and has done incredible things. You have one guy who is singularly so great at what he does, which is killing commies. That he just goes and hides in the snow and picks people off with a rifle that he probably can barely see or make out the person from the distance he's shooting from. Like, it's just incredible. Like, his story and his sharpshooting is like an unheard of feat or like level of precision. The whole thing's crazy.
Finns had a few other advantages beyond his Angel of Death status as a sniper. For instance, the Soviet troops all wore bright green uniforms, which made them stand out like decorated Christmas trees against the snowy white landscape. What also didn't help the Soviets was they lacked officers with any leadership skills, mainly because Stalin had them all executed when he purged the USSR of any potential political opponents. And even though
And so people didn't know how this would affect the Soviet military, right? I mean, people thought that it would, that it would pull down their ability some, but nobody really knew in what context and to what level it would have an impact, right? The purge from Stalin on the military officers. the Soviets performed so poorly, and the Finns like killed so many soldiers that it basically put the Soviets under a huge global spotlight of, well, if you can't take the Finns, like if you're having this much problem with Finland, then like what are we even talking about, right? Especially in regards to the Soviets being involved in World War II. Um, I'm not sure the role that the Winter War played on the German invasion of the Soviet Union. I'm not sure if it affected timing or, anything like that. But I feel like for sure, it made the German high command more confident in their invasion strategy for Barbarossa because the Soviets the Finns just worked them so much in the Winter War that then an army like Germany was like, well, I mean, if they can't take the Finns, then we'll run right through them. It really is kind of crazy.
Soviet invasion of Finland was technically successful. They only managed to capture a relatively small amount of border territory, leaving the rest of the country intact. All told, the Soviets suffered nearly 400,000 casualties during the Winter War, compared to the 66,000 suffered by Finland. Most snipers shoot while lying flat on their stomachs because it gives enemies a smaller target to aim at. Häyhä fired from a sitting position because he felt the position was better for his aim. He didn't worry too much about making himself a bigger target, as he was just a biscuit over 5 feet tall and would conceal himself in snowbanks and put snow in his mouth to hide his breath. Additionally, Häyhä would pack snow in front of his rifle barrel or pour water on it to freeze it, so that smoke would not rise from it after he fired and give away his position. And in perhaps the biggest departure from sniper etiquette, rather than going for the head, Häyhä aimed for the center mass of his targets, which is effective in war.
Yeah, this is common practice today. So shooting for center mass is what snipers do, right? I mean, because it's the biggest target. It's aim small, miss small. That's the kind of overall thought process. Is you're going for the bigger part of the body. But yeah, can you imagine, like, put yourself in the position, not necessarily of this, like, super soldier that's out there killing Soviets, but put yourself in the position of another sniper. You walk out, away from any sort of, like, defenses that you may have. You hide yourself in snow embankments, in brush, and then if you're doing what he did, you're you're putting snow in your mouth. You're basically completely covered in snow, and you are sitting there all day. All day you're sitting there just waiting and waiting and waiting. And I'm sure that there were days where literally you just sat there all day, right? Imagine, like, they talked about this in the last Sabaton history, where war is not how it's portrayed in movies. And this is one of the things that is missed a lot, is kind of how monotonous it can be, right? Because there's times, I'm sure, where it's total chaos and he's shooting nonstop and there's a ton of Soviet soldiers around, and like it's adrenaline's up and everything's going at 1,000 miles an hour. But then there are also times where he sits there all day looking down the barrel of his rifle and there's nothing there. All day, minute after minute, hour after hour, until the day is over. Or just trying to find another sniper position, right? There's a sniper out there somewhere, but you're waiting and waiting and waiting all day, and all you're doing is looking, right? And then crossing your fingers and hoping that he doesn't find you first. Like, I don't know, it's just a crazy situation.
Time, but won't do him any favors on the Black Ops 4 leaderboards. Häyhä's reputation as the John Wick of Finnish snipers eventually drew the ire of the Soviet commanders, who finally grew tired of his nonsense and began targeting him directly. Because getting anywhere near Häyhä was out of the question, they began hammering his general location with artillery strikes. When those didn't work, the Soviets sent teams of counter-snipers to take him out, but Häyhä, being the sniper's sniper, dispatched them with bone-chilling ease. Finally, one Soviet sniper got lucky and blasted Häyhä in the jaw with an exploding round. Despite being described by one friend as having half of his head missing, Häyhä refused to die, and after days of reconstructive surgery, he finally regained consciousness, the day after the Winter War had ended. Despite getting a portion of his face blown entirely off his dome in a time when medicine was still largely experimental, Häyhä survived World War II and went back to hunting and farming. The Finnish government actually gave him a farm in 1961, presumably both to reward him for his service, and they probably wanted to stay on his good side. Häyhä took up dog breeding and continued hunting, winning the Ruokalahti Hunting Society's Game Cup 5 years in a row. In 1970, he moved into a small apartment where he lived out the rest of his days before passing away at age 96 in 2002. That's right, the deadliest sniper in World War II lived long enough to have witnessed the rise of popularity of NSYNC. Simo Häyhä left his quiet farm life in the winter of 1939 to become the most effective sniper in history, racking up over 500 confirmed kills without even using a scope before returning home to live out the rest of the 20th century in peace. What do you think of the White Death? Let us know in the comments and
I think the dude was a total badass. That's what I think. If he had to pay for a drink in Finland at any point after that, it is a total sin, right? Everybody should have bought that man a drink every time they saw him. Like, you know, if nothing else, just to make sure he's not, like, looking at you side-eyed, probably. But, yeah, his story is really cool. The way he went about everything was different from what was done at the time, which I think kind of adds to his legacy, right? Everything about it is just one badass thing after another. I had never seen that older picture that they showed at the end of him with the glasses on. I'd never seen that picture. It's crazy that he lived that long, right? That he lived, I mean, he got old after having half of his face blown off. And after living through what he lived through during the war, you know, it's not just him. I think about this with a lot of World War II troops and World War I troops who went into these situations where they were devastatingly wounded, or they were in a situation that left them so mentally, like, segregated from the rest of the world. But then when the war was over, they just went home. And that was it. It was like it didn't happen, and they were expected to just pick up their life and go back as if nothing had happened. It's just crazy to me. But this was a great one. I'm going to get the song from Sabaton, White Death, out in just a little bit, so I'll see you all then.